out. Okay. All right. So I've got two recorders. One is from Zoom, and then there is another one which is local that I'm going to turn on as well. Okay. Now you're able to see my screen. I'm sharing it with you and you can hear me. In case if there is a hardware issue or something, again, just put it in the chat. If I lose connectivity and it has to do with, because there are so many moving parts here with the hardware connectivity. If something happens, there is an interruption, please wait for 5 to 10 minutes. That's about the average time it would take for me to come back to you. So don't leave the class, please just be patient and give me 10 minutes. I'm going to break out of this, oh God, okay, and open up the Dropbox to get you introduced to what's in there. So with the link that you have in your email, you would directly go to a Dropbox access. This is your batch number 1187. The syllabus is in, okay, the classes roadmap and practice exams and few other things I'm not going to discuss right now, but I'm going to talk broadly about the course syllabus. You can look at the classes roadmap later. The syllabus is more important because it gives you details of how we are going to cover the lectures. Because these lectures are somewhat given an estimated time with the topics that are going to be covered, you could see that there is 10 different major topics or main areas, you could say. And between 1 through 10, it is going to cover all 4 modules. So we are not segmenting the syllabus into 4 different modules, but rather into 10 different areas that we have to cover all together for CIRS. The time, as I mentioned to you, may just go up and down. It just depends on me how fast I deliver the lecture. Now, there could be an issue with how I'm delivering the lecture in terms of my pitch, my speed at which I'm delivering it, or maybe you want me to slow down, or if you want me to repeat something, you will have to let me know at the right time, right there, so that we can somehow adjust it. Because not all of you have, especially in the technology side, let's say, not all of you have the same skill set or background, that would for some of you would make it easier to understand. For others it may be difficult, or it could be simple concept which may appear boring for someone who already knows it. But we have to be courteous because everybody has to be included in it. So when it comes to technology, please let me know where you want me to repeat few things. That's going to put you all in that box where I'm going to be delivering the technical part, but the pace will have to be slowed down in case you don't understand. Now I'm looking at these 10 different topics and all these hours. This is going to make 30 hours altogether. But like I said, each individual area or the topics are explained further, that what we are going to cover in, let's say, 4 hours. So lecture 1, lecture 2, lecture 3, lecture 4, I'm sure you would have had time to look it up, except for Brad, who has just joined us today. So Brad, you might want to see on the weekend, you have access to all of these lectures, or at least it's going to give you an idea what's going to be covered. And for some of you, you may find that certain topics you probably know, or you feel that you don't want to be, to be wasting your time on something that you already know. So you can actually plan it according to what is being delivered or what is being written here. Okay. So all these lectures has some description of what's going to be covered. Now, besides this, there is these four modules that we will have to talk about in any case when it comes to sitting for your CIRS exams. Now, how many of you are interested in exams or becoming CIRS versus someone, you know, who's not interested exactly in the exams, but rather just learning part? If all of you are supposed to be giving CIRS, then I will have to emphasize on few topics or few areas that might be important from the exams point of view. And there was a session which I did not too long ago where nobody was interested in CIRS, but they were there to learn, you know, online research methods or web search methods. So I sort of repositioned the course and, you know, sort of made it more worthwhile their time that they've spent. If you are all to do CIRS, that's good, that's the objective. And this means that you will have to cover four of these modules. Networks and internet technology. What used to be a lot of technical part in the networks area, we have removed it in the new version, which is 5.0.1. Earlier version was 4 series or 4.0 that had a lot of information on how the networks connect together. So we have actually did a lot of fine tuning in module 1, so to make it easier. And we would certainly appreciate your feedback after we get done with the course. And that's how we, that's how we tune up our courses or the next versions. There is something I'm interested in taking. Okay, so Sonsere, good enough. I know that you are interested. And Pat, okay. Brett, everyone. So that makes everyone. So I will, in between, I'll be also using something more like a simulation of a whiteboard, but I don't have proficiency in using the whiteboard with the pen and all that. So I'd rather be typing things and I'll be using Notepad instead. Okay. So whatever we write on the notepads, because we are now going to be focused on the exam part as well, we will make those into notes. Whatever queries we discuss, we will put them in the notepad and then I'll put it in your Dropbox. That becomes a reminder for you. So that's these 4 modules. Now, next thing that we will do after we get done with the sessions is I'll give you mock exams. Now, mock exams, or you could say practice Q&As, that will come after we cover everything. Because if I give it to you earlier, the thing is that you know, you might want to ask more questions, or you may get stressed out because certain questions you're not able to answer. So we, as a strategy, we have decided to give it to you after we get done with all the modules. Unless you request for it, I don't mind it, but I'm just letting you know. And then for the final exams, you can ask, you have to notify us through support that you are ready to take the exam, and then we'll give you the final exams, which would be for each individual modules. You will be given 5 attempts, 5 free attempts. So literally 20 attempts altogether for the entire CIRS. And normally, and this is another question which you may ask later, what is the pass percentage, or how many people attempting different modules, all 4, how many of them pass all 4 or whatever. So generally, overall CIRS passing percentage for anyone taking my course is, you know, 80% and above. Okay, so it's, don't think of it as a fixed percentage. I'm just giving you a general idea. And then for individual modules, the module 2, which is more extensive, like I said, it's covered 67%, is where people find it more difficult, or it is a more, or it takes a more of an effort to pass module 2. So this is where we are going to focus most. Everything else is not going to be a problem. And I said, like I said, 80% is a good result. Module 2 usually is what really holds back people from getting certified. So there is a way that you can get that done as well. And the mock exams that we will give you will come very close to the finals. In fact, it'll give you the assurance that now you're ready to pass as soon as you start to get higher percentages on your practice tests, and those are unlimited attempts, so you can practice as much as you want. 60 to 70% of the questions are similar to what you get for practice. Some of them are even the same questions, so don't ask me how or why, because I don't manage that. It comes from another department. So this we have done. I'm going to now take you to another important box where you would be able to find the book that we are following. The book that's going to be our entire course that you will find in training guide version 5.0.1. If you click on this, you will see that it has a txt file, which is a notepad. It'll open up very easily. It has a password inside of it. So for you to run the PDF, I'd suggest to download it first, because it is in the cloud right now, and it would make it difficult for you to open it, and it will take a while. So to make it open quicker for you, just download it first, and then while you're opening it, the PDF is going to ask you for a password, and this password is going to be inside the text txt file. And this is how some of the other material protected the same way. You will be able to open up the txt. Okay. There are some extra books which makes it confusing for some of the students to find out that why are there so many books? Are those going to be part of the exam, or do we necessarily need to go through them? Because it's still a lot of pages. For instance, there is another folder that says WS training guide. Okay, so this is okay. Here it is. I would rather not confuse you with this, but it is more like a quick reference to search queries. So it is like a reference guide. You don't have to use it while we are going through the course. Don't overwhelm yourself. Make it more focused, and make it more in sync with what has been taught in the class, so that you don't get distracted. So I'm just going to give you an opinion. It's up to you. Like folders like WS training guide, not necessary. Okay. Resource reference booklets, not necessary for you to use right now. What's in there, you'll discover, and you can open it up. We don't have to go through each one of them. Research information references are practically the same as resource reference booklets. A lot of what is in here is put in the research. So that's why I'm saying that I'm not going to guide you through in detail right now, but what I'm going to be concerned about is for you to not get carried away or get distracted by opening up certain folders which are not important at this point. When it is something that I feel that for me to cross-reference with, or to get you introduced to them, I will let you know while we are doing the slides. It will come to a point where I would have to come back to these folders and tell you where certain set of information or more details are. So for now, ignore it. Training guide is what you need to download. You need to open it, keep it on your, because this is where you would be following it as I'm running it on my screen along with the PowerPoints. You would at the same time be able to open it on your side if there is a need. Nothing else is important. Nothing else. Recording is another important one. Recording is where you will find a text file which will have links that you can just copy and paste, or it's going to be hyperlinks. You can click on it, will take you to a recording. It will have a date and the class number. Class number is very easy. It's just numerics 1, 2, 3. So if it's the first class, it will say class 1, and there will be a link under it that just takes you to that recording. Next thing that I'll be running in the class is PowerPoints, and these are in PDF format, so you won't get it in the PowerPoint form, but it's a PDF version of PowerPoints. And for this to open, you would still need a password. And this is where now one thing about the PowerPoints is that I've discovered, and it is through my experience, that I have a tendency, and I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I know eventually you will appreciate it, that we have a very set pattern or set format or a set sequence of how the PowerPoints are put together for this course. But I usually insert certain important slides, or I borrow slides, or sometimes I make new slides. So I have to readjust it, realign it. I have to look at the pulse of how the class is following things, things that I think would be important or is missing. I would have to then insert that. Bottom line is that whatever PowerPoints you're going to look at for now, it's not going to be the final ones, but anything that I add, I will immediately upload it for you to see it the next day. So in that way, it's not going to be exactly the page numbers that might be something that you'll have to ignore for now, but I'll keep you engaged and I'll keep you informed. Now, there is ebooks, complimentary books. This is for someone who is looking to get more information on how to find evidences, do background checks. Some of the books that I have in here are merely for your information. It is not for CIRS. Okay, so that's all. We will just close this and we'll get started. I'm going to start with the technology or the web pages, or how the web pages are set. It's not that I'm going to teach you what HTML language is or programming. It's nothing to do with that. Just think of it as a piece of information which is good to know, because eventually it's going to connect with how you're going to run your search queries. So bear with me and be patient when we go through certain type of technical information that makes you feel that as if you're in a technology class, but that is not the case. The purpose is to only introduce you to certain concepts which eventually are going to tie up with what's coming next, or what the subsequent topics are going to refer to eventually. So we'll have to revert back to the technical side. So we'll cover that one. Okay, we are going to start with the course. Just to let you know that there'll be few slides that would cover the overall or overview of how the internet is connected. In the simplest way, I'm going to explain it to you, and some of the characters, some of the players that are going to be crucial for us to get an understanding of how the web pages are collected and then how they are indexed would require a background or a little bit of an idea of how some of the participants within the internet environment are connected with each other. So that's how we're going to look at some of the slides. It's just going to be 3 slides. And after that, we'll get into the complexity of how the HTML tags are read, or how the search engine looks at the web pages, and what part of those web pages are considered by the search as vital pieces that directs it, or for it to deliver the results back to you. Those are some of the attributes within the content pages that we'll get introduced to. And that's the content which is embedded inside of the HTML tags. So just a quick overview where the connectivity starts. We have this slide that's giving us a shortcut of how these different segments, which we have numbered as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, are playing a part in getting the search engine to work for you. First is that there are two type of, and believe me, some of it is so basic that you would think that it is probably not necessary. But on the other hand, if it is something that's going to be important from the exams point of view, or it could be a simplest question asked, you may find it important enough to actually pay attention to it. So this is the main reason I'm going to explain this, because it's going to come as question in your exam. So two type of applications that run on our internet devices, or anything that carries a software or a hardware which is connected through the internet, is divided into two types of applications. One is web applications that work from within a browser. A browser is a software, a program that gives a frame or gives a connectivity to the internet from the software perspective or from the software side. The network connectivity is going to be next, but for now, let's say web applications are responsible for you to be able to connect to the internet and interact with any application which you download or which has to work through the internet cloud that you could see right here. The others are local applications, which are obviously not connected with the internet, but they function on your local machines. Programs like Microsoft Word, anything that you have, not that you've downloaded through the internet, but let's suppose it is something that is purely functioning using your desktop or your mobile device environment without connecting to the internet. Those are local applications. First point of contact is your bandwidth provider, which means it's giving you the pipes or connecting you through wireless waves, whatever the medium may be, that brings the network into play. And the first point, as I said, bandwidth providers are companies like AT&T, for instance, Verizon Wireless, and so on. They are giving you the connectivity for running the data sets across the, or giving you access to the internet. Second environment, which we call the ISP environment, or internet service providers. Now, internet service providers are value-added resellers of a service which allows for the website to be hosted on their servers so that it becomes visible through the internet. This is, businesses like HostGator or GoDaddy.com and so on. So what happens with the web pages to become discoverable, first of all, is nothing to do directly with the ISPs, but rather has to do with environment number 6, which I'll introduce you to a little bit. But continuing with the ISP side, the servers that these ISPs hold actually allows for anyone to run their websites or web pages and make it visible to the internet. The first thing that the web browser does is that it connects not to the ISP, but rather connects to the data centers of companies like Google or Bing or Yahoo and so on. What these environments or the data center environments of these big mainstream search engines are doing is that through their servers, they are serving the pages by first collecting it through the ISPs, or whenever the ISPs are hosting a website or a new domain is registered, new website comes up, the search engine environment data centers has a mechanism to send something they call crawlers or robots that actually are responsible for collecting all those pages that are connected to the domains, and those domains are not necessarily being directly accessed, as I mentioned, through ISP, but rather once these pages are collected through those robots and crawlers in the data center environments, they get replicated quickly and they get distributed across the globe. And this is where the indexing happens. This is the environment which is not a single entity, but rather a lot of data centers which are responsible for indexing, duplicating, replicating those pages and making them appear or being available across the data centers very quickly. And at the same time, their indexing system is something that we will discover later how indexing happens, but indexing system is responsible for attending to your search queries. In response to what you write in your address box, the data centers are going to serve you according to the location where you are doing your browsing from. So if I am doing my search from Florida somewhere, yes, Brad is right. There is a data center. There are, see what happens, the technology of data center is very sophisticated in the sense that it is running through specialized programs or something you are familiar with or heard about algorithms. So algorithms are mechanically programmed systems which would allow for the algorithms to perform by attending to your search queries or matching your search words and your search phrases. So while it is doing its matching and doing all of that, it has certain restraints. It has a certain, you could say that there is a kind of a filter bubble, or there is an internet bubble which puts you into a localized environment as a default action by the search engine to deliver from the closest data center. The geographically distributed data centers are supposed to perform three functions. One is to deliver the pages where they are closest, or where the data center is closest to the location where the user is using their internet device. So if somebody is in Florida doing search, they would probably end up getting results which are more localized, or which are actually identified with the location of businesses, or whatever you're searching for is kind of customized, or it is an implied action of a search engine to deliver it to you a more localized result. Second thing is the geographically distant or the distance of data centers has another is another barrier, kind of. So if supposing you are able to break out of the bubble and you want to find something in California instead of Florida, then you will be accessing the pages which are more coming from that part of from that different state. But at the same time, you will have to tune up your search query, or you'll have to add certain restrictions, or you have to add certain directions so that it can bypass that localized delivery of searches. That again is an attempt to break out of that bubble. The third intention of the localization is that most of the pages, or you could, like today, all of the pages literally that are indexed are cached pages, in the sense that they are not real time. Basically, those are the pages that have been collected prior, so that they are available or readily available to be delivered in the shortest possible time. So that technology is called caching technology. So that is another purpose of having data centers spread across the globe, so they can be identified with not only localization, but the quality, but the speed at which they are delivered. So all those technologies are served inside of 6 this circle within the data centers. And depending on the type of browser you're using, it is actually programmed to connect you with the search engine environment of that particular vendor. So if it is Chrome you're using, it is going to connect you to the Google data centers. Okay. And then there is a question of differentiation between search engines and the web browsers. As I said, the web browsers is a localized application which is actually loaded on your machine as if it is a localized program, whereas the browser itself is actually given instructions, or it is programmed as such that it only can connect to that particular vendor's search engine environment. It's not going to take you to the Bing if you're using Chrome. On the other hand, there are situations where you have to be very selective in defining or using the browsers. For instance, if I have to collect some research papers that are not easily available in United States. Now we're talking going a little bit global here. And you feel that you feel that certain type of information is censored, or it is sensitive enough for North America to for Google to actually make it available in public domain, or if it is more localized to the geography or the socio-political scenario of a region which is not United States or Canada, and you want to break out of it, you may want to use another browser, which could be, say, in Eastern Europe. You may want to use a browser which is called Yandex, or a search engine that has a Yandex browser. And that takes you straight into the Eastern European side, and you can collect your information from there. Similarly, in China, more prominent browser or something that is more localized and gets you more information from China is not going to be Google. It's going to be Baidu, B-A-I-D-U. That's another browser that you can use. And then in Japan, strange enough, I thought Yahoo was not the kind of browser that would be as famous. Especially in Japan, it seems that they have done their own branding, and Yahoo has become more used or a more localized browser for finding something in Japan. So those are the selections that you have to make. Some of the other specialized search engines are in the market, and those are exclusively for finding certain type of information or certain formats of files, or they have a peculiarity which makes it, or there is a differentiator which makes it more specialized to conduct certain type of research. Those are called specialized search engines, and they're custom made. By the way, the browser itself is, when it the origins of a browser is that it was a open source software, which means that you can download it and you can customize it according to your environment. So if I had a data center or bunch of servers which I want to be controlled by my own browser that I want to create, I can use the open source, download that, and start to customize it. Google's browser, or the Chrome browser, is I mean, it may come across as a surprise. It was an open source initially, and they built a lot of utilities, a lot of functions on top of it. So that's where you are going to distinguish between browsers, the type of browsers. Absolutely. There is so the search engines, the mainstream search engines are very different. Their environments, they're massive environments. So the mainstream search engines are different from specialized search engines. That is one thing. Second is that there are certain browsers which are mistaken as a search engine itself, but they are not a true search engine. For instance, let's say DuckDuckGo. It is preferred as a browser, or or it is confused as a search engine, when it is not a true search engine. It is really a browser that's been customized to perform certain functions different from Google Chrome, except that DuckDuckGo piggybacks on main search engines and is selective in collecting the information. At the same time, it is protecting. So there is a market value to it, but in the true sense, it's not a pure or true search engine. Um, um, and so on. So we don't have to get too complex over this, but this is just to give you a general idea of how the browsing happens and where the browsers and the search engines are separate. And that's about as much as we want to touch upon the overview. Next is how the web pages are collected. So when you look at the website, or you see, if you want to just imagine how a website works, it is very easy to understand. It just depends on how you approach it or how you look at it. If I have to explain it to you as a layman, I would simply say that the websites are similar to how you have your folders sitting on your desktop or your office environment, where you have a name of name of the folder, and within the folder there could be subfolders, and so eventually you end up getting access to the true files, which could be PDF or any format. That's where you're going to have your um, uh, for the individual content pages, and to get to them, obviously you'll have to go through all the folders, and the website works in a similar way, in the sense that when we are talking about the document itself, which is could be inside of any subfolder named XYZ. It may start with ABC, would go into XYZ, and then inside of it, there could be a file or a document named, let's say, AOFIRS content file. So AOFIRS content file is the name of the file itself, which is to be accessed and could be considered similar to what we call, or what we think of as landing pages, or any link that we click on that takes us to a destination page. That page has a name, or it has an identifier or something that gives it a title, and that title is similar to how you have those individual files inside of those folders. So just visualize that as if the entire website is set of folders, and inside of that there are documents, and those document names are literally the landing pages or those individual web pages. Now, when we are talking about website, we are also talking about collection of those pages by search engines, so that they are indexed, properly held, and made available when you want to match it with your search terms. So what mechanism search engine uses is by floating, or by asking the kind of programs, which are small programs, but it has IP addresses, and it has been given directions to go and search the entire web, look up the domains where they are held inside of the ISP environment, to tap into that, get into the root files, and then look at the different pages those website has. And this is the job of web crawlers or robots or spiders. Okay, and those spiders are constantly collecting those pages so that they are indexed inside of the data center, and they are indexed in such a manner that and obviously indexing means that it is organized in a certain way, so it can be called upon request, and that request is programmed mechanically. It is supposed to match your search terms. It is supposed to give a ranking to those pages to appear, and bunch of other things. So this scenario or this illustration is just saying that all those pages are getting collected and being brought into your indexes or in the index system of your search engines. And when they are indexed, they are also collecting the links or URLs, as you could see right here, is a direction or telling the users or anyone looking for or clicking on the search results to know where it's going to take them. So URLs is where it's going to define or identify with the name of that file or the folder or that individual page that is a title. So for instance, in this link, when it is collected initially, the search knows that the name of the page is about years, for instance, and I'm going backwards from where it ends instead of going from left to right. Let's say from right to left. If this is a link, then the last leg of it or after the last backslash of it, you could see that says about years, and this is the title of the page or name of the page or the landing page that is collected and indexed. And then of course there is a folder named index.php which comes before about, and it is still not the last segment but second last, means it's still a folder and not the name of the document. And then it tells where the domain is, so that it is going to take you to about years or this page exclusively. So this is just a collection methodology. In the CIRS exam, all they're going to ask you, or what is important for them, is to know that you understand what crawlers are or what robots are. They mean the same thing. So if we are saying crawlers, robots, or agents, they mean the same things. Or the spiders, people name it differently, and there is no single authority that's going to tell you that the naming is fixed or this is the naming convention. Rather, it is something that you'll have to deal with. In fact, understanding what could be the different ways in which you're going to name them. However, there is one exception where, in the earlier modules of how the search engine was put together, they used to call something bots, BOTX. Now, bots means that it is a program. Spider means it is also a program, and it is the same thing as bots, except that bots are now given a bad reputation where people have started using the word bots as a spamming, something that people send out to scrape data. These are programs that can be designed by anyone. So if you look at some of the data scraping programs, which crawls automatically into the internet and gets those records for you, when you're collecting leads, name of the people and so on. If you turn them on in the night, give them a parameter, give them the keywords you need to look for, you come the next morning, you'd see like 10,000 collections are already there for you, and those are automated process, and bots are responsible for making that happen, and they are not liked very much or considered spamming by some of the some of the search engine vendors. So that is another term that you can use, but like I said, spiders and bots are same thing. Now that we have an understanding or a general overview of how the web pages are collected, I'm going to actually start with giving you an understanding of how the websites are set. Now, why I'll keep explaining, or maybe I'll keep repeating same thing. I don't want to be repetitive, but I will remind you that these concepts are going to play a role in identifying with the certain type of advanced operators that you're going to apply, so that you are consciously aware of rather how or which part of the pages they're going to query, because the content page itself is got a lot of text in it. It has a lot of words, it has different types of files, and individually each page is considered a data set, not in the sense of how we'd like to think of RDBMS or relational database, which we are used to using, but rather from the textual point of view, the content, the entire content of the page has different dimensions, different media that has been played on those content pages. So for you to understand where those search queries would require certain type of operators, you will need an understanding of how the search engine reads those pages, because before indexing it is supposed to read it to understand what the page is about, first of all. Second, to also understand some of the important contents that it's going to match your query with. Third thing is that it is going to deliver that content based on the page ranking, which means the richness of certain type of text and the algorithms that's going to give it a priority for ranking purposes to appear in competition with other pages on your SERPs or result pages. So this is the reason why we're going to learn first HTML, get a sense of what HTML holds, and then to see how it's going to read it. So first, let's look at the broad topic. We are now going to talk about website, web pages, and HTML. And within this, we are going to cover 4 aspects. One is to introduce you to website and web pages, like what constitute those pages or what is considered as different segments of contents that is read by the search engine, because the search engine does not read or looks at the web page as we do. For users, the nice layout or how the information is organized is important. But for the search engine, it will not be looking at how the page appears or what content you can see, but rather it's going to look at the code and picks certain content or certain text, which for the search engine is more important. It is not to say that that content is not going to be displayed on the user side as someone looking at the page, but rather certain content or certain information that is embedded in HTML is also read that otherwise is not visible to the user. So this is another caution that I'm going to ask you to be aware of, and caution in the sense that where you feel that certain information is not discoverable or it is not visible on the page will most certainly be there, except that you are not able to see it. For instance, keywords. Keywords are embedded in HTML, but they don't appear on the user side when you're looking at the end page. Similarly, time and date stamp, the information about the author, it may not appear on the user side, but it is embedded in the code for different reasons. But I don't want you to get dragged into that area yet. But for someone who is doing deep search and looking for time and date stamp, or for collecting digital evidence, or for finding certain pieces of information which ideally you or intentionally is not made public, but it is embedded in the code, that is discoverable. So that's why we are going to look at HTML to understand what gets read. Design and structure of HTML, indexing of web pages. Now, this is going to be very interesting because I have something we use something as a simulator which we have created internally that gives us an inside view or gives us under the hood view of how the indexing happens, because Google It does not have any book or set of instructions or good enough document that tells us how the indexing process happens exactly. But through the reverse engineering or through trial and error, through finding the results, we can go back and assume few things to understand how it's working or how things are getting delivered. So we are going to learn about how the indexing process happens. And this is where the simulation of the indexing process is going to be shown to you. Okay. All right. So any questions thus far? Everything is good. The pace is all right. Any confusion? You can correct me right now. I'm just trying to figure out if I'm able to deliver the concepts. Right?
Yeah, everything's fine with me. I'm still trying to download things. I'm
Don't have to do it
recording.
now, though, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Walter, how's it going for you so far? Okay, there. Al, you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm all good. Thanks, David.
All right. Pat, all good?
Yeah.
I'm sorry
Fine.
if I don't take everybody's name. I'm just trying to get a sense of how it's coming across. So anyway, Sansare, I'm sure it's working all right for you too, hopefully. Okay, I'm going to now show you something. Okay, all right. So let's look at how the search terms are getting the results delivered to you, how the search engine is looking at things, how you're looking at the pages. Now, supposing we did a search here. And by the way, these brackets that I'm going to use is just a simulator, something that's going to give you the imagination of a search box. So it is not something that's part of the search query. It is just the enclosure or just a simulator of how the box is. This is what we're going to be using over and over, these brackets. Let's suppose we wrote 3 words: internet research specialists, and we used Google Chrome, and here we've got a result that is showing Association of Internet Research Specialists. It has the link here or a URL. The title part is shown here, and then what you see in the gray color right here in 2 lines, sometimes 3 lines. There are different ways in which the gray wording or the major part of what's in there, especially with the highlighted search words, this is what we call the description part. Okay, and it has, like I said, and I'll show you the different versions of how these descriptions are set. But for now, let's assume that these are 3 important areas. One is the link or the URL, second is the title, third is description, and the fourth that you're looking at here, it's sort of appeared. So we've sort of showed it, but generally it's not usual to see what you see at the bottom. These are all hyperlinks, and this is called rich snippets. The 3 components, which ideally together are called snippets, may have an additional part that we call rich snippet, or makes it a rich snippet. Means that it is more elaborate, more explicit, or it has more easy navigation links to it. But what is important is the 3 parts: title and description. This is where we are going to be explaining where this information is appearing from, or how it is collected by the search engine. For now, let's see that this is the page that appears when you click on the title or the link here. This is how we are looking at the page. Now, how the search engine is reading it is slightly different. Now, search engine is looking at the code of this page or the HTML part of this page. HTML part is where we are going to learn about certain type of tags or containers or labels which are identified with the text that is embedded in them, and they are named and labeled. And at the same time, the search engine is going to look at those labels or meta tags as if it is reading through or inside of the tags to discover the content and to match those content. What are the main areas or main tags? Search is not going to look at every single tag. Search is not going to, or may intentionally ignore certain words or may ignore certain file formats. That means they may not be discoverable even with these most powerful search query that you're going. So understanding what could be some of the parts that would be missed out, you would also gather or have an understanding of what part you can get or how effectively you can apply those queries to find what is there, rather than wasting your time on something that otherwise would not be read and therefore not indexed and not available to you. So now let's look at what gets discovered by the search engine. Okay, first is the link. You could see this link that is coming with the HTTPS and the colon sign is getting discovered by a tag called base href, which means that this is the first information that it's going to collect. Let's not get confused with meta, non-meta tags right now. Let's just assume that whatever is being pulled and shown in the snippet, which is what you're depending on for you to make your decision whether or not to click on it, where this information is coming and is landing in the snippet, that's what we are discovering. On the HTML side, this link is collected from something called href, is shown in line 10. Okay, then the other information which has to do with the title part, association of internet, is it's going to come from a tag. It's called title. You could see, read here, it's called a title tag. It is being read by the search engine. Okay. Third part that is going to be read and indexed first before it appears in your snippet is the description part. And in the description part, you would see something which is named description. All these names, the description, the title, these two at least have the same, is given the same meaning, and it is discovered or given the name exactly the same as is shown in the snippet. But the link part is not a meta tag. It does not have a word meta, which means that it is something that is read through href. So there could be some other links in here, but it's not going to discover it. It's only going to read href, which means that it is the higher hierarchy of the domain, or it is the first discoverable link or the URL that is going to identify with the domain name itself and the page that it is referring to. So that gets read, description gets read, and the title gets read. So that's how it is going to show up. Now, what part of the code is not seen or read or is shown on the user side are embedded information such as keywords. You won't see anything on the home page or any other page that says our keywords are, all these that are mentioned here. Same way, there are other tags which can be discovered by the search engine, but it's not visible to you. So it is an information, but it's not visible to you. What could that be? It's the rights. That means copyrights. So the copyrights are Association of Internet Research Specialists. I'm just giving you examples of what is not shown, but what is available and can be discovered. lot of times you want to look for competitors or look for similar sites with similar keywords, because keywords is what's going to drive you to find your competitors. Anybody doing business analysis or someone looking for competitors, to do some research on businesses, they will have to go into the source code and then find out what the keywords are, so that you can use those keywords to find others that have used similar keywords. This way you are it's going to make it easy for you to discover the competition. I'm just giving you one utility or one advantage of finding this information. Similarly, there could be date and time stamp, which is very important for news. If you're collecting blogs or you're using certain articles, you want to get to the source, or you want to make sure that if it is if it is uploaded by someone, you want to find out when it was actually uploaded, or when the story was reported, in case if it's a news story, or if it is an evolving story, something that has to do with events, and it has sensitivity to date and timestamp, and it is not shown in the articles or blogs, especially on purpose. Certain type of news articles, they are recycled, they are rephrased, and for that reason they don't put the dates or for the users to market as if it is reused, or if it is a new added version or whatever. If you want to discover the origin of it, who the original uploader is, you may want to look for a tag inside of the source code to discover, and surely you will find date and timestamp. Especially in news agencies which are well known, or at least they're considered more authentic or more reliable. Those resources, by convention of how the electronic or digital information is uploaded, follows a convention. That convention says that inside of the code you have to mention the upload date, or when the story was discovered, or all those date and time stamps are there. The name of the author has to be there, and this is for competition reasons, and for them to protect their intellectual property and so on. So it is more like a convention. In case you have to validate and verify if that story has been recycled, you can go to the origin of it, open up the code. If it is changed by someone, you can just compare it and look at the date and timestamp. But that's going a little bit too fast and going a little bit ahead. I'm just while I'm doing this, I'm also not really using certain slides which are going to come later and appear as if I'm repeating. But nevertheless, it is the right time to continue and maintain the flow. Okay, now let's look at the content page itself. I'm going to just show you this slide to for you to understand the concept of how those web pages or individual pages are segmented based on how the search engine is going to look at it and make its decision, or discover or match a certain type of text depending on the segment where it is being put on those pages. Generally, the web page that is indexed is divided into three parts. It's got a top portion which they call header, and that contains the main information, or embedded behind this header part is the code that contains the meta information or meta tags, or anything embedded in the meta tags, like description, like URLs, domain, and so on, keywords. Those are actually sitting behind the header portion. And header is where the search engine is going to make a decision of in what category, or what is the nature of the website, or what are the goods or services that's being offered. All that is discovered in the header portion. And when we are running a search to find information about, or the macro information about a page, or our query is not too long, it is not too precise, but it is kind of exploratory query, and we are okay with finding information in the title portion. Most of that information is matched in the header area. So for this reason, we segment, or the search engine segments it as a header portion. And then comes the middle part, which is where the information keeps changing. And I don't know if you can recall, or from, I'm sure you could relate to it. Did you notice that anytime that you go on any websites, the header portion remains the same, the logo remains intact, the main navigations on the top are the same. So more or less it remains constant, and anything that is below it or the middle portion of it, where the pages keep changing its content, or when you go and click navigations, different tabs, you would find that the header remains the same, and even the footer remains the same, and the middle portion keeps changing. But this is not a rule. I mean, anybody can program it differently, but generally this is the convention, and this is what the search engine is going to understand or segment certain pieces of information by dividing it into the kind of information that resides in the header versus what is in the middle portion and what is in the footer. Okay, so the middle portion we call body of text, or this is where you have things like, you know, headings, captions, you've got you know, list of things, you've got if there are types of files or multimedia, it's going to be listed. Like over here you could see PDF files that are listed here. There could be image files, which could be JPEG, PNG, there could be video clips, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of action in the middle portion. This is where the search engine is going to discover if the pages have fresh content, would it give it a better ranking, or if the kind of material that is shown in the middle portion in the body of text is more important, or is given a kind of or it is rich enough that it has an impact on the ranking. And at the same time, there is more of the search words or your terms that can be matched in the middle portion versus what is on the top or header portion. So for header, for instance, we are going to discover that most of the tags that are read are going to relate to an advanced operator called in title with a colon sign. So title part would have title information when you're using that specific advanced operator. We are not doing the advanced operators yet. This is all conceptual to give you an idea of why it is important and how the segmentation affects your selection of advanced operators. This is the only concept we are discovering right now. Second is that whatever is held in the HTML tags that are in the belly, or you could say in the middle portion, has got a variety of important tags which may not be meta tags. Meta means top layer. Meta information is the general overall category or something that talks about the website or the content of that web page. And that is more brief, and that is where the header is going to separate it from everything else, which means non-meta tags or the kind of labels that are considered not at the meta level, but at more granular level. For instance, you want to do a deeper search. You want to go in the body of text to discover or find words that has to do with the main caption, subheadings, which has to do with the type of files and so on. It's all going to be discovered by using another operator we call in text. So if we have to do deeper search to find or match words within different paragraphs of the information page, we would most likely find it in the body of text, and that text is going to be discovered by using a specific operator which is not going to be in title, but rather by selection or by design, you're going to use in text with the colon sign. And we are going to now see how we can, apply that. But for now, let's say a header and the middle part or the body of text. And then when we talk about footer, we're talking about links. It's going to be bunch of links. It's going to be your digital navigations to your footprints in social media. Typically, what is considered convention is what is being shown as well. The footer generally has this type of information. It also has a sitemap, which means that if you click on something that says sitemap at the bottom, it's going to give you a kind of a parent-child chart of how the main links are connected to sub-navigation. Basically, all the pages that are connected to the same domain are discovered through sitemap. So for search engine, the footer part has a lot of importance when it needs to discover if new pages are added or if anything they need to get to within the same domains. They're going to look at the sitemap. So those robots are given that direction through the sitemaps that are in the footer part. But we don't have a very special kind of operator that's just exclusively going to search for the sitemap. Rather, most important would be the in URL operator, which means that most of the URLs are embedded in the footer, and whatever wordings are used in the URL are going to match to your search words. And therefore, it is segmented by the indexing system as internal links, external links, and so on. So all those are being held or being organized while it is doing indexing and segmenting into 3 parts. This is all that we have to understand for now on how it is divided. The page is looked at by the search engine. Excuse me. Okay. Now, without getting confused and without feeling pressured, you are most welcome to ask any question you want when we do this slide. We are just reinforcing what we talked about, except that I'm going to use my cursor to identify with the concepts, and you are welcome to ask any questions you want. Let me explain what this diagram is about. So in this diagram, A is what we discovered through our search results. We've got this snippet as an example. Under that, in B, we have the page itself, and in C, we have the code opened. And all that this part is telling you is when we are using certain advanced search operators, where it is going to discover that information through the HTML. If we are going to run an advanced operator, let's say in URL, it is only exclusively going to match or look for the wordings that appear in the URL part or in the link. Okay. In text is going to discover the description part. Okay. In title is going to discover the title part. Now on the left hand side, we have opened up the header part, or the portion which has the meta tags or the kind of tags that we'd like to think of or consider as the primary or the main identifier of that page. So on the top portion over here, where I have navigations like about, knowledge network, this is my page right here. I'm going to find that what is going to be responsible for presenting or making this appear in the header, in the layout that it is showing. It has this code embedded behind it. So it has meta property title, it has description, it has keywords, it has author. So this is the header part. In the non-meta tag, there would be tags which are important for the search to be able to organize those text or the wordings that are considered for matching purposes are embedded in these non-meta tags. Now tags, as you know, is labels. I have the best concept of it is to understand that the codes that are used in tags are considered or are known to be understood by the search engines for their importance or for their significance to the index and for the index to make it discoverable or for the index to understand that this portion of embedded text is more important than others. So let's suppose now this is not as detailed, so I'm going to skip non-meta tags for explanation of it. I'm going to take you to another slide. Okay, now when we are talking about non-meta tags, which portion of the web content or web page we are talking about? Body of text. We are not talking about the header part. Now we are discovering or querying the middle portion or the deeper text. This is where non-meta tags are going to be in the body of text. Better still, let me just break out of this just for a minute. And show you this slide. Okay, so it would have come later, but I'm going to bring it a little bit early. So let's assume that this is the page, and in the page we have different types of content. So all contents are not equal, or they are not carrying the same weightage, or for the search engine to discover certain or segregate them and place them into different slots according to its indexing system. We're making it simple. So we are saying that there is an image here, there is a website header, this part, it has keywords, it has bunch of things, it has main headings, like this is the text main heading, this is the subheading, this is another subheading, these are paras, all these are words, none of it is so far is multimedia. So as we keep coming down, we see images, then we see video files, we see the footer. So all of these, like text headings, text headings, keywords, image URLs, all these are considered by the search engine as segmented, or within the page itself it has a way of identifying the type of content. And we were more concerned about the body of text to understand what non-meta tags are important. So I'm just going to take you directly to non-meta tags, which is where you're going to follow this red arrow, and anything that is behind this vertical line are the type of tags or naming conventions which labels them as, for instance, H1, H2, H3. For the search engine, while it is reading the tag, it knows what H1 means. Like H1 for the search engine means it's the main heading. H2 is the subheading to the main heading. H3, it progressively goes, for instance, to H6. So H6 could be the smallest heading within that page. But because H are important, or headings are important, or they're considered captions, search engine indexes them separately. Okay. Similarly, if it is an image file, it is going to know that it is IMG, and this tags, or it is non-meta. Of course, we are talking, all these are non-meta tags. These non-meta tags are understood by the search for the reason of how it is going to index it or separate it. Now, one thing about image search that I might want to bring at this point is for your understanding that when you are doing image searches through that special utility or that icon on the top that says image search, you are actually running into a different type of search. It has nothing to do with Google search per se, in the sense that it is not a true search that otherwise you could do with the search query operators. Don't get confused yet, okay? When we are doing image search, let's take one piece at a time. When we are doing image search, it is running different algorithms. It is searching for pictures, images. It is exclusively bringing you images and nothing else. And at the same time, it is comparing or matching images with other images, like as if it has a database of it, and it has a special type of algorithms or a technology that is doing matches of images at the pixel levels. Okay, so that is a separate way of searching for pictures. But when you are doing Google search and you are trying to find certain format, certain type of picture with a lot of text in it that describes the type of picture you're looking for, and you're making it into a search query, it is running a different search. It is not, it is a separate algorithms from when you are making a choice of selecting from the image, and you would see the results are coming different. So if and then there is one more dilemma, I would say rather, where when you're doing Google search, when I say Google search, I'm separating image search. I'm using Google search to still search for images, but using a different algorithms. So when we are doing image searches through Google search, we are sometimes we are able to discover other images that are otherwise not available through image search. And while we are doing image search, we may not be able to discover others. So these are two separate. The drawback of doing Google search is that if I put my picture, or my picture has a text or a named, I've named it different. Like instead of my name, I put somebody else's name, and I'm doing Google search and not doing image search. It is going to read the text part, which is identified by the picture, or the picture is identified by the text or the naming of how you worded it. So if instead of Naveed Manzoor, somebody puts my picture and names it as Dennis and or any other name, it is not going to find or discover my picture, but rather look at the name and find somebody else named Dennis. So that's how it is going to cause that confusion. So between Google's, and we will be learning and discovering the usefulness of doing Google search separate from images in different situations. There are certain situations which would not give you the correct results if you do image search exclusively. Somebody who is intentionally hiding certain things will be discovered through Google search rather than Google image search. So anyway, that's having said that, we are now focused on non-meta tags, another tag which is important for the search engine to go more granular and match wordings or different lines within paras or different paras in the deeper text. They would be discovering it within the P, which means it stands for paragraphs. Okay, so the search is going to also collect paragraphs separately. Source, where you want to get to the source in case you want to identify that information for plagiarism purposes, or if you want to collect it as a evidence of some sort. You may want to open up the source code, and then just type Control F and use the word source to get to there. Okay. Strong is another operator, which means that anything in words that are emphasized or that has a bold text to it is considered important, or it is for the indexing to collect that as a separate piece of information or separate text that has a precedence over other text, or maybe strong has a more precedence over the text that is embedded in the P code. So these are, and then video and section and so on. I'm just giving you an idea of why certain tags are read at the time of the indexing and how they are segmented for it to get ready for you to discover. Okay, so all this process is now getting you closer to how the indexing process, or how we are going to look at the simulation of what is collected and made available to us. And at the same time, you would also know what is not available to us, generally not discoverable, or something that we find that we cannot see, or which appears in your snippets, but when you click on it, it doesn't show on the page. It doesn't mean it won't exist. It only means that the search engine has read it, except that it is not being shown intentionally or unintentionally, it doesn't matter, but it can always be discovered by opening up the source code. Now, if we want to look at how the source code is opened, it is a very simple process actually. AOFIRS.org. If I go to a page which, assuming that got returned in the CIRS in the results, and I clicked on it, and I saw that it doesn't have those wordings or that information, and I might want to open up the source code. Now, when this page opens up, you can do the right click, go down here and just click on something that says view page source right here. Anybody can open it. It's not something that is secret. HTML is not secure enough that it would not allow you as a user to open up, or there could be other embedded codes which could be secure, but HTML itself you don't have to worry about, because it's going to open up, or it's going to show you all that is making it possible for this page to appear the way it's showing right now. So I'm going to click on view page source. When I do that, I will discover that it has on the left hand side lines, and each of these lines has these codes or instructions, and it has things like meta name, meta tags. These are all meta tags. Anything that has something that says meta means that it is the primary information, basic information, and therefore it is going to open up and you can see it. Now on my side, I don't see the keywords, but here you can see all my keywords, okay, for the website. Similarly, if I want anything that is to do with date and timestamp, of course, depending on whether or not it is part of the code, you can always discover it. So let's just get to it later. It's, I think, too much information for today, assuming that it's your first day and all of a sudden you're bombarded with so much of information, and some of it may appear complex. I would rather, let you guys enjoy your weekend and then try to digest what we have covered so far. At the same time, if you get a chance to write down any questions based on what we have covered, you're most welcome to ask on Monday. If you want to download your ebook, which is the training guide, you would be better off to open it up to first get an understanding of what I'm talking about, or what got covered, and read through it before you can ask those questions. So all that put together, I think we covered a lot today, and unless you have a question or anything that I can answer for you, let's do it now before we call it an evening for some of you to go back and enjoy your dinner, be with your family. Okay, anything that I can elaborate on, something that you need more explanation over, I'd be happy to do it. Going once, going twice, deal is up. So let's see you all on Monday. You think you'll be able to make it?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
You sure it wasn't so boring that you almost fell asleep? All right.
No.
At least we had a 10 minutes.
Kind of. I
All right.
remember.
Good enough. Okay, so all set. We've got the recording. I got an okay. It says that we've got it and it's going to be available to you on Monday morning. Okay. Thank you so much, all of you, for being in the class. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. And enjoy your weekend. See you on Monday.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. Have a good
Bye,
weekend.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.